many men in the house. There must have been about 10 that I counted with heavy artillery, guns, all kinds of guns. And the one guy even said, I'm going to give you a baby, and here I am as a 15-year-old, and I was just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. This is a nightmare. This is not possible. Never in my life did I ever imagine anything like this would happen to me. I was condemned and left out during my rock bottom. They judged me. My so-called friends turned their back on me. I was left alone during my downfalls. So I think this person was really feeling alone, feeling abandoned, felt also betrayed by people whom they thought
were their friends
they could really trust. That's really painful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Wow. Last one. Ito, namatay yung older sister ko on my birthday. Wow.
Wow.
Pero nasa ICU muna siya for one day or 7 days. In a coma, kala ko birthday gift, nagigising na siya on my birthday. But it's the opposite. I was 8 and she was 13. I'm so sorry to hear that. It's really painful stuff, and we're reminded that this pain is present, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've all been through difficult circumstances. I think the reality is that we've all experienced brokenness, and I want to also be real with you guys. And some of you have maybe heard this story already, but I've also gone through really painful circumstances, and one of the most painful was when I was younger, when I was 15. But just to give you a background, kasi lumaki ako sa home where I had parents who were loving parents. My family, it was a great family by God's grace, and we loved God, we followed God. My dad was even a pastor. He's a businessman, but he's a pastor. And so there was one night, it was February 7th, and it was a Friday night. And during this night, I'd ask my parents, Mom, Dad, can my friends spend the night? My two friends who were girls. And they said, okay, but they're going to be in Makati because we lived all the way in Antipolo area, in Valley Gulf. And they said, okay, sure, they can come over. But they went to teach a Bible study. Now, I'm part of a family of 4 other siblings, so 5 kami, and I have an older brother, and then me, and then a younger brother, and then 2 younger sisters. So nung gabi na yun, it was only the 4 of us who were present at home because my older brother, he was playing in a tournament for our school. Nasa Subic siya. And then my friends were gonna come over, but my parents were away teaching a Bible study all the way in Makati. Now, just to give you an idea of how old I am already, back then walang cell phone. So when our parents would go out, it would be really hard to contact them. And so what happened was, at about 6 p.m., my sisters at the time, they were baking something in the kitchen. I was in my parents' bathroom. I was about to take a shower. And then the rest of my brother was somewhere in the house. And at 6 p.m., the doorbell rang, and then may pumasok. I didn't know what was happening at first because if you can imagine our home, there's an entrance, and then there's a really long hallway that goes all the way to the end where my parents' bedroom was. And so I just heard, but parang iba yung sound sa bahay? Because we'd always go around barefoot. And our house was, it's like wooden planks. So pag may mga rubber shoes, you can hear the squeaking sound. Iba yung sound na yun kasi we're always barefoot around the house. We don't even wear chinelas. And so I was like, there's something wrong because it sounds like there's people running inside and out of rooms. There's commotion, there's movement. And iba, parang people are rushing around, they're scrambling. And so in my heart, parang I felt na there's something wrong. And that's when I started to pray. I said, Lord, I think there's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but can you please just protect us, protect us. So I thought, okay, maybe I'm just imagining things. So I decided I will peek outside, look down the hallway to see. And then when I looked out, so I went out of the bathroom, I looked down the hallway, I opened it, and then I saw a man from the end of the hallway. He was running towards me. He was wearing a yellow mask, and here his face was covered. And it's like a movie scene where you're like, this something is not okay, but what am I going to do? So I tried to close the door of my parents' bedroom, but it was an older door, super bigat, like it was solid wood. It's the kind na yung lock hindi na siya, what's the word? It doesn't meet anymore, so that you can't really bolt it. So I ran into the toilet, and it was just one of those cheap doors where you can just push the lock. So I just waited because I was like, I don't know what to do. And I didn't see my family because it was just that guy running down. And then I was waiting in the toilet trying to hide. And then I heard somebody banging on the door because he had opened the bedroom door. Then he went to bang on the bathroom door. And then he's banging on it. And then I heard na may susi siya. He had the keys to the bathroom, I guess, because all the keys were inside the kitchen area. They were hung there. So he's able to get the keys. And so he opened it, and he had a gun, and he was shouting at me, why are you hiding? And then he was asking me all sorts of questions, and he was trying to intimidate me. And then he said, where's the money? Where are your dad's guns? Because my dad used to collect guns, and so he had, not the man like heavy artillery, but like rifles and handguns. And so I knew where some of them were, so I showed him. And then my parents at the time, they had a jewelry business also as one of their businesses. And so my parents had kept a lot of the stocks in their bathroom. I knew where they were because I was the oldest girl. My parents didn't keep a lot of money sa bahay, pero I knew where the jewelry was. So I decided I better show him because he has a gun, and I showed him, and I think he was really happy about that. And then afterwards I thought, okay, I guess okay na. But then I think it was partly because I was wearing a towel because I wasn't able to get dressed. And that was the moment when he said, he made an action that I didn't understand. I don't think I've shared this in other testimonials that I've had, but he made this action, like something like this, and I didn't understand because I was 15 years old, and I never had a boyfriend. I never kissed anybody. I was, in my mind back then, I was really innocent. I didn't have any idea of sex before marriage. So he forced me onto the floor, and then at gunpoint, he proceeded to sexually assault me, and he did many things to me, and I started to cry because I was like, what's happening? But then he would say, don't cry, because he didn't want me to be noisy. And so after he assaulted me, then he brought me to another part of our house, which was my bedroom now, which I shared with my sisters, this was my parents' bedroom. A few steps down was my bedroom, which I shared with my sisters. And then he brought me there. He made me change first. And then I borrowed something from my mom's closet, I remember. I still remember the shirt because it had like a weird stripe pattern on it. I just grabbed whatever and I put on something at the bottom also. And then when I went to my bedroom, and then that's when like different guys, I can't remember how many there, but there was a number there, and I was also raped there. And then I was brought to my brother's bedroom, because there were guys there also, and then I was also assaulted there. And so all in all, it's about 7 men. Then there'd be times when people are watching also, and then they were making it seem like I had experience, and they were saying all kinds of vile things to me. And the one guy even said, I'm gonna give you a baby, you know, and here I am as a 15-year-old, and I was just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. This is a nightmare. This is not possible. Never in my life did I ever imagine anything like this would happen to me. So at a certain point, after that was done, I was brought to the living room area, the entrance of our house, and I was thinking in my mind, you know, Lord, I really pray that my friends don't come. Because I had 2 friends, and I didn't want them to come anymore, because I didn't want what was happening to me to happen to them. But as I shared with you back then, there are no cell phones or anything, and so they did end up coming. I know, because when I was brought out to the living room area, I saw their 2 bags open in front of the entrance. It was on the floor, and all their things were taken out. And I didn't see them at first, so I was tied up on the floor, and eventually they were brought to join me also. Now the rest of my siblings were in a different area. They were tied up also, face down on the marble. And there was many men in the house. There must have been about 10 that I counted, with heavy artillery, guns, all kinds of guns. And so I was thinking, what's going to happen tonight? And at what point are my parents going to come home? And I don't want them to come home also, because they were asking me, nasaan ang parents niyo? Where are your parents? And I didn't want to tell them. I lied. I said, oh, they're not here. They're not in the country. I was lying, because I didn't want them to wait for my parents. And so maybe they felt like I seemed calm, so they told me, okay, you go out, you go out. So when I went out, then I saw the parents of one of my friends. They just came to check on us. So I just peeked outside the gate, and I said, you know, there's robbers in the house. And that's all I could say. I just whispered it, and I said, bye, see you later. So nag-acting pa ako, and then I ran back inside. And then when I ran back inside, the men were like, sinabi mo. And then I said, no. And then they said, okay, we're just gonna kill you all now. And they started cocking their guns, and they started gathering around us. And I didn't know where my siblings were yet, and I was just praying, okay, Lord, I know this is a selfish prayer, but I said, Lord, if they're gonna shoot us, can they shoot me first so I don't see a massacre? So apparently there was a gang that was going around the area that was robbing houses, and this was probably the gang. And so what happened after that was, surprisingly, I don't know why, they decide, I think it's God's protection, they said, okay, let's just go, we'll go. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier. The way they were able to come into our house, because we had so many dogs, is my uncle who delivers rice. I think when the gate was opened for him, parang sumunod sila sa likod, because they were waiting, I guess, somewhere. I don't know this detail.
He was the one that first rang the doorbell at 6 p.m.
Yeah, and he came, and he normally would deliver rice, so everyone in our family trusted him. And so they decided to take him as a hostage, and they left our home, and they drove off. Now, about some time later, we were just quiet because we didn't know what to do, and I was talking to my friends, and I said, you know, did something happen to you? And they also said that they were assaulted. And so we were just like, we were talking, we were chatting quietly, and then we saw lights. There were flashlights outside of our home, because somebody was trying to shine flashlights into the home, because all the lights were off. They had turned off all the lights, the robbers. And so we thought, oh my gosh, bumalik sila. But then it turned out that these were friends of ours, our neighbors. We lived in an area where there are lots of missionary families.
American missionaries.
My friends were 2 American girls, And so they came in and they rescued us actually. They saw that the house was turned upside down because the robbers went through all our things. They pulled out drawers, they pulled out things. They were looking for valuables in our house. And so they took me and my friends to another house when they found out what happened to us. My other siblings stayed behind with the household help to kind of clean up and wait for my parents. So I went to a separate house, also in the same area. I think in the same, no, it was in Brookside, somewhere in Brookside. So when my parents came home, from what they told me, when they came to our house, they saw so many police cars and they thought, I think somebody might have died. Why are there so many police cars outside our house? So they walked in, that's when they found out that our house was robbed. And then one of our friends, a missionary, he went up to my parents and they said, okay, we want you to know, I want you to know that all your children are saved, but something happened to Joy. And he told him my location. So they went to where I was and I was just waiting. I was talking with my friends because my two friends, the one couple who came to our house was there already with their daughter. The other couple, I used to call them uncle and aunt, they were not yet there because they were based in Hong Kong. So they had to fly in the next day. So we were all talking, what are we going to do? What happened? And we were telling the story, but I waited for my parents. When I saw my mom and dad, they came to the house. They were standing at the gate. I went out to meet them because I didn't want to talk to them in front of the people that were in the house, although they were our friends. And so I went out and then I saw my parents' face and I knew they knew something was really wrong already. And so I went out to my mom. I remember she was holding her bag really tight under her arm. And I just said, I said, Mom and Dad, I was raped. And it was really hard for me to say because I think those who go through sexual abuse or assault or rape will understand that you feel so dirty and you feel so ashamed. And I know my parents always tried to take care of me and they always tried to protect me. In fact, we would pray every night as a family, Lord, that you protect our family from every evil thing. We had this prayer. We still pray it now with our kids, but we would pray, Lord, please protect us from Satan, evil spirits, natural calamities, accidents, from evil people. So every night we would pray that as a family. It was like our tradition to pray together. So I know that my parents were probably thinking when they heard me say what I said, if God loves our family and if we are followers of God, why would they allow something like this to happen to our family, to our daughter? And so that moment was the beginning of like how we tried to recover as a family, how we tried to process everything. And so after this, we decided, how are we going to move forward? Our family, the friends, my friends' families, my friends. And, we decided we should tell the community that we're a part of, which was our school and our churches, but they also belong to different churches. And I honestly believe that this is one of the most healing things that we did because, I've counseled a lot of women who have gone through abuse and rape, molestation. And when they tell the people whom they love, we're supposed to protect them, or they keep it secret, where first when they tell the people they love and the people say, that's not true, don't tell anybody, it's so painful, it's so difficult. And sometimes that kind of betrayal is even more painful, that the very people whom you trust, who you would think would look out for you, would take care of you, would want to protect you. But the other thing is, for those who never told and they kept it for so many years, and they maybe only recently told their husbands or told somebody whom they know, it's like they carried such a heavy burden for so many years. And so the fact that we decided as a family, let's tell people right away. Let's invite people into the healing process and let's ask people to pray for our family. So we did, like almost immediately, My parents met with church leaders and we shared what happened, and they came alongside us, they prayed for us, they really encouraged our family. And then when the news spread even around the world, we got so many letters from people just saying that they were praying for us. And so we had this community of support that I believe not a lot of women or abuse victims have, which became part of our healing. And so I think that was the first part, is like being open about what happened to us. And I remember in church, it must have been not that Sunday, because it was a Friday night, but the Sunday after, and we were standing in church and we shared about it. And I remember there was a song being played, and it's called Hearts Courageous. And I remember that I was standing singing that song because I think it was a moment for me to really affirm the fact that I love God and I trust Him. And the song it goes something like, we're marching on with hearts courageous. We'll follow anywhere you want us to. And should you lead us where the battle rages, Lord, we'll march with hearts courageous after you. And so the song is all about, we go through difficult circumstances in our lives, but we will still choose to believe in God. We will still choose to have courage that He's a good God. And I share this part because this was part of my healing. By God's grace, because I had a relationship with Jesus, because I had a relationship with God, my Father, when those things were happening to me, I remember thinking, you know what, they can touch my body, but at the end of the day, they can't touch my inner person. Because even if I were to die tonight, I know that I'm going to heaven. I'm secure. I know that my future is secure. And this is just a physical body. And that really gave me so much strength in the moment and so much peace. Like I had a peace that I cannot explain, and it comes from the Holy Spirit. It came from the Holy Spirit. In fact, God put in my mind Psalm 23, that says, it talks about the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And even if I go through the darkest moments, the darkest valleys of my life, He will be with me as a shepherd. And so that was so comforting to me. I just kept reciting that to me as those things were happening. And so I share that because I believe that was really one of the things that also brought healing to me, was being able to look at my relationship with God and say, Lord, I'm still going to trust You. I'm still going to believe in You. I'm still going to have hope that even if this happened, this really terrible, painful thing, that You have a good plan for it. My gosh, my nose is so stuffy. I think for everyone in the family it was hard, especially for my older brother, because my older brother, he's a super protective person. I mean, he's the type that he wouldn't want me to wear shorts like outside the house. He was always very protective. And when he found out, because he was away, he was so mad. He ran outside our house and he ran down to the basketball area. We had a small basketball court, and I remember he was just sitting there and he was hunched over and he was just crying because he was so upset that he wasn't able to protect me. And so I went down, I ran after him, I just hugged him, and I didn't know what to say also, because I understood that as an older brother, he felt somehow responsible that he wasn't home. But I think if he had been home and he had done something, we probably would have died, because I know he would have given his life for us. So everyone in the family was affected. My sisters also, they became so scared of doors not being locked and even going outside. My youngest sister was so traumatized for a while. And so I think that was the beginning, right? That there was the after effects. We had post-traumatic stress. And then there'd be times because we had told our community, because we had told our school, the teachers were so gracious, and they said, you know what, Joy, if there's times where you just need to cry or you need to be excused from class, it's okay, we understand. And I was just so grateful, because looking back, like I said, people didn't have the same kind of support that I had. A lot of people don't have that kind of support. And there'd be times I would just have to excuse myself from the classroom, and I would just go to the bathroom and I would cry, because because I didn't know how to process what happened to me. I felt like all my innocence was taken away, that I had lost something that I could never get back. And it's hard to explain, but I just felt like what was taken from me was gone forever. And I was just grieving. I was really grieving the pain of that loss and the difficulty of that season. So throughout my high school, by God's grace, I had good friends. My friends and I, those two girls and I, to this day, we're still friends. We really support each other. In fact, when it's February 7, we'll message each other because they're in the US now, and we'll just ask each other, how are you? And by God's grace, we are married already, but I won't get to that part yet because there's still the journey that after high school. So when I went to college, not a lot of people knew anymore because I was in college, and most of my friends, I came from a missionary school, they went off to their different countries of residence. So in college, in my sophomore year, I met a guy, the one who's sitting beside me, and it's such an amazing story because I'll be honest with you, after what happened to me, I did not trust guys. I did not ever want to marry a Filipino because there was an association. You know, when you go through trauma, you have these associations, right? And in my mind, Filipino men are evil. I know it's wrong. It's a wrong thought because not everyone is evil. But in my mind, because I was so traumatized, I thought I can't trust Filipino men. There's no way I'm going to marry somebody who's Filipino.
You're in a missionary background where there were not many Filipinos
Yes.
in that school,
Yes.
just as a context.
So when I met Edric, it was our psychology class. And we were sitting in the back, I remember, because somebody was presenting a group project. And I'd seen Edric on campus, and admittedly, he's a handsome guy, he's good looking. A lot of people had crushes on him. But what first attracted me to Edric was during that class, we were sitting in the back, and it was like a group presentation, so it wasn't like our professor was teaching. He was doing his accounting homework. You're doing your accounting work, right? Something on spreadsheets. And we just started talking. And we were talking about God, we were talking about faith, and I thought, this is
We
such
thought about what subject first. What was I doing? That's what I remember.
Yes. And then as I was talking to him, I thought, this guy is so sincere. He's so transparent. He's not pretentious. I met a lot of guys kasi in my college. Ateneo is a great college, okay? My son's going there now. But when I was there, I felt like a lot of people were, what's the word? Maybe is it plastic? Or what's the term now? It's like,
You can still use that word.
parang
Fake.
some people seem fake, yeah. Like you're not really sure. Are they really genuine and everything? There were a lot of great people, but some of them seemed like I wasn't sure if I could trust them. So when I met Edric, and I've described him this way before, I felt safe as a person. I think I said this before. I said, I felt like this sense of home, like I was home with him. And, looking back, I really believe it's because we were meant to be together. But at the time, it was just this feeling I had that I could trust him.
You still feel that way now? We'll get there.
So that became like the beginning of our journey when we got to know each other, and we would spend a lot of time talking, and we developed a really great friendship. And there was a certain point where I think you should start because you wanted to tell me that you liked me. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So I think part of what I observed became instrumental in your healing, right? So when we met, Joy mentioned we were in the same psych class, and my first impression of Joy was she was a foreigner, and growing up in the Philippines, amongst my friends, they would say, these are the girls that we know, and if they're foreigner, they're in English, they're out of your league. Parang hindi mo reach yan. So, cut the story short.
Explain.
I know, cut the story short.
Foreigner in the sense that I didn't come from a typical...
You didn't come from the typical Filipino schools,
yes,
right?
So, that's all, yeah.
And you literally are foreign. I mean, you don't have any Filipino blood in you. When we met in that class, and as Joy was sharing, I started getting attracted to her more than just a friend. I wanted to tell her that I liked her. And the way I did it was I said, hey, so I'm going to tell you something that's really important. And I hope that you can, take my call later, because there was no cell phones, right? It was phones. So she said, well, I have something really important to tell you as well. And in my mind, inisip ko is parang, wow, she likes me too. This is what I'm going to tell her, that I like her, and she will tell me that she likes me. That's what I was thinking. Yun inisip ko. So I call her, so telephone, no cell phones yet. And as I get through to her, I'm like, hey. She's like, hi. As I said, so about what we were talking about, that there was something that you wanted to tell me. And there's something I want to tell you that's really important. Do you want to talk about it? And she says, sure. And then I said, do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go first? And she said, oh, okay, I'll go first. And so in my mind, in Filipino, kilig na ako, di ba? I thought sasabihin niya sa akin na parang, she likes me, she's really interested in me, because that's how I was feeling, right? We spent those moments. But instead of her telling me all of that she really likes me, she started to tell me the story of what happened to her. And it wrecked me, I knew her name was Joy, and all her friends who knew that I was getting interested in her said, you know what, alagaan mo yan, take care of her because she's special. She's such a joy. Nobody knew about her story in the school yet. Hindi pa nila alam yung kwento niya. So when she told it to me, I couldn't believe it, right? I think I was just so shocked that I said I had to go or something, right? But I was just so shocked that such a sweet girl could have gone through such a major trauma. And I felt so ashamed as a man also, because I was, at that time, I was struggling with pornography. And, there was no internet yet. I think internet was still growing. So I had all of this
internet
stash.
already.
I had all this stash of magazines and tapes, cassette tapes. I don't know if you even know what that is, right? These not cassette, but VHS. And when I heard about what happened to Joy, what happened to you, I felt so horrible. Parang sama akong tao, diba? I started thinking about how it's because of people like me, yung mga guys who are so perverted already, that innocent girls like Joy. So I was very upset. I was very upset with myself. And what was helpful is that after our call, so I did tell her, I said, actually, after hearing everything she shared, I did say what I wanted to say to her. I said, actually, I was not expecting to hear this. I don't know if you remember that. I said, what I thought you would tell me is that you like me because I want to tell you something, that I like you more than a friend. And I can't remember the rest of my words then. I think I was just, the general feeling was shock that all of those things had happened to you. And so immediately after that call, because I was so angry at myself for having, those perversions, right? Just the pornography and all that stuff. I took all my stash. I think I shared this, you know this. And I burned it. I had a ceremony. So angry. I burned all the stuff and I was crying. I was so upset at myself. So in a very indirect way, part of the healing journey that Joy had been going through, she was only 19 at this time when we met. So 15 when it happened, she went off to college at 18, and then I met her at 19. So still very fresh in many ways. When I heard this, part of what became your healing journey became a transforming journey for me too, right? And that's one of the things that I saw that was really powerful. And I think part of what Joy was sharing is when you let people in your healing journey, it doesn't just do something for you as the victim, but it does something for the people who hear it. And I was one of those recipients. Ako yung tinamaan at nagbago talaga ako. I made a clear resolve not to be involved in that anymore. Now, to be honest, there were still streaks afterwards. I would still struggle with that, right? It really was the point where two things happened for me, and then we'll go back to your journey, right? Number one, because of that conversation with Joy, I wasn't only attracted to her as a person anymore, but I was attracted to what held her together. Paano ka nakaraos, di ba? How was a person like that at 15 able to go through all of that? And her family. Sabi ko, kung ako yun, and the reason I was getting even emotional, because some of the things that Joy was sharing even now, I've been married to her, I've known her most of her life, I've heard her share this story so many times, but there are details that I didn't hear. And it's frustrating for me because I'm also very protective. I have 3 sisters. And it's frustrating, I cannot do anything about it in the past. But when I felt all of that anger, I thought about kung kapatid ko to, anong gagawin ko. Diba? All of these things, all of that anger, like I wanted to find who those people were and I wanted to kill them myself. Iisa-isahin ko sila. Ganun yung feeling ko. Sobra akong galit. But what moved me was how they chose to respond. They didn't do that. I think, can I share?
Yeah.
Ultimately, those guys, kasi nasa gang sila, lahat sila namatay at some point because of their lifestyle.
I'm not sure if they all died, but a number of them were either caught or killed because my parents had connections in military, had some friends from military.
So they would give them updates, right?
So they would update. Somebody from the military said, "Do you want us to take care of them?"
Yeah.
And my parents, of course, didn't want them to be murdered. You know, my dad said that he wanted to castrate all of them, but he didn't want
I
to
didn't know
kill.
that.
Daddy wanted to. He said he wanted to line them
Castrate
up
and then cut
and
off their balls.
castrate all of them.
Yeah.
I know that's.
Anyway, this is
actually-
maybe an overshare
but-
right now, but so I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back to what I was sharing, right?
Yeah.
So what it did to me, as I said, because of all that frustration, what moved me is paano nila ginawa and how are they able to choose those things that even you were sharing now? And what I discovered from Joy is what she was already sharing, how there is a person, his name is Jesus. And it is Jesus that held her together.
Mm-hmm.
It is Jesus that held their family together. So I was so curious to get to know that Jesus. I thought I knew Jesus kasi pinag-aralan ko na siya, di ba? Sa Pilipinas, we learn about him. But when I learned that what held her together was when she started a relationship with him early on and she chose to say, Jesus, I want to make you the Lord and the Savior of my life. Ikaw nang bala sa akin. I didn't understand that until I met Joy and this story. So that changed me, right? What happened is I chose to say, you know what, I want to know the same Jesus in the same way. I asked him to be the Lord and the Savior of my life. And that's when I started to see the change. Even the anger and all of that disappear. Like I said, you know, I'm just so glad that she's healed and she is well. So those 2 things became instrumental in my own journey, in healing from all of the issues I had, including pornography. It was when I chose to give my life to Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And then second, when fast forward, can I already fast forward to what happened to us? Or I'll bring it back to you.
Yeah, so I think, you know, there was something else I had to do, I think, because it's important to say. There was a point when we discussed, even as a family, forgiveness, right? How do we move on from something like this? And part of it was, first, of course, we invited people into the pain by sharing about what happened to us so that we could have that support and then people praying for us. That was so important. Number 2 was we chose individually to really believe that God is still good, that he has a plan for us, that in Romans 8:28 it says, you know, God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. But then we also had to forgive. And honestly, I think it was easier for me than for a lot of women who know their abusers, because in my case, I didn't know the men. And so it's like I can get away from the situation. I can forgive them and just move on. But there's some women who I've counseled where it's hard to forgive because they see the person every day, or they see them at family reunions, or the person never was sorry, never was broken about what they did, all the pain they caused. So in my case, by God's grace, it was just, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to choose to forgive these guys. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that later. But I think that God also used Edric to be part of the healing journey for me. Because that whole idea that I had of I can't trust any Filipino guys, when I met him, I was like, wow, there's an amazing Filipino guy who I can really trust.
I really was able to get freed from the addiction of pornography and up to this day. You know,
Yeah, that's really a miracle. that
porn
he-
free
yeah.
through when I chose to follow Jesus, and then we finally got married. So that's why I wanted to tie that back in
Yes.
to my own journey about how her healing journey created healing in the people around her, which included myself. So let's bring it to today. Do you want to bring it to today?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I think that, when we talk about healing, and I'm so glad that Edric shared his own journey, because I think that there's different kinds of brokenness that we deal with, right? There's brokenness that happens to us because of circumstances or what other people do to cause pain in our lives. And it can be different forms of loss. In my case, it was the loss of my virginity, in a sense, through rape. For other people, it could be betrayal. For other people, it could be the loss of a business or the loss of a loved one. In Edric's case, he had his own version of pain, which is self-inflicted, where you make choices that hurt
Suffer
you
the consequences.
and hurt people around you. And so there is so much pain in this world, right? And we all need to be healed. And like I shared with you guys earlier, my relationship with Jesus was the reason why, to this day, I'm experiencing healing. Before that event of February 7th happened, several years earlier, at the age of 9, I remember I was talking to my parents and I was so afraid to die because I knew I was going to hell. I would steal, I would cheat. I was not a good kid. I was a good kid outwardly, but I was struggling with deception and sin in my own life. So when I asked my parents, tell me about Jesus and how to really have a relationship with him, and when they explained to me that I can be sure of where I'm going because of what Jesus has done on the cross based on John 3:16, that's when I really gave my life to Jesus. And after that, I had peace. And that's why when I went through the rape, even if those things were happening to me, I felt this peace that I was going to be okay. And so fast forward to today, when I look back, and I've always claimed that verse, Romans 8:28, that God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. It is God's children, those who follow him, who are called according to his purpose. And I look back and I see so much good in my life that I don't deserve. I married the best guy. He really is the best guy. He has taken care of me. We've been married for 23 years now. And God has used him
And
to
how
be.
many kids?
And we have 6 kids. So from a rape victim to somebody who was able to have 6 children, it's God's grace, it's God's healing in my life. And then God has used this story to reach out to other people, to reach out to different organizations, churches, communities, women, people. People come up to me a lot and they just say, you know what, thank you for sharing your story. I've also been through something similar. And I'll be honest with you, my story compared to some of the stories that I hear on a regular basis, some people have gone through way, 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 way worse. And so I think what I'd like to encourage you all as you've listened to this, I know it's been kind of a long conversation, is that brokenness is real. It's true that there's pain in this world, but the Bible tells us that it says, in this world you will have trials, you will have tragedy, but take heart because I've overcome the world. And that was Jesus speaking in John. And healing begins with a relationship with Jesus because we're broken first before him. And that's how I was able to forgive. I was sharing earlier, I was able to forgive. It's not because I'm a good person. It's because as I was processing, I said, Lord, how can these people do those things that they did to me? How can they do that? How could people be so evil? And God shared with me something. He said, Joy, all people are sinful. Even you are a sinful person. You may not have raped or
Killed, stolen.
but you are also a sinful person, and I died for you just like I died for those people. And so it is by God's grace, it is by my grace that you have been forgiven. And so with the forgiveness that I have given you, you need to take that same forgiveness and you need to forgive the men that hurt you. And it became so clear all of a sudden, that's right. That's why I can forgive. It's because I've been forgiven much. Jesus also died for me. And in God's eyes, because we're all fallen, we're all broken, we're all sinful, He doesn't say, this sin is bigger, this sin is worse. We're all sinful. And I said, Lord, with the same forgiveness you've forgiven me, I will forgive the people who hurt me. And so that is part of the healing journey. We can't heal if we don't forgive. Because when we don't forgive, there's anger, there's bitterness. And what happens is, from being a victim, we start to victimize others with our own anger, with our own pain. And I didn't want to stay a victim. So I said, Lord, I'm going to forgive. Lord, I'm going to choose to believe in your goodness. Lord, I'm going to tell people what you've done in my life. And I'm going to use this story to help others. And in whatever way I can be a blessing, I will choose to be a blessing. And so that's why I'm also here sharing this today, because this is part of my healing. And there have been other moments where I've had to heal, because healing is a process, right? You have to heal at different moments in your life. And when I became a mom, and my one daughter is 14. She's going to turn 15 next year. And when I think about how God heals, you know, there was a time I was so afraid that the same things that happened to me would happen to my children. I would ask them all the time, has anyone touched your private parts? Are you okay? Remember, I told you guys you need to protect your body. And I would just be so obsessed. And I would always be like panicking. And Edric would sometimes say, I think you need to relax. Because I'd always ask them, you know, you can always tell mommy and daddy if anybody abuses you or anybody hurts you, okay? Because you can tell us, you'll be safe with us. And that was like part of my trauma, I realized. But then when I look at my kids now and how God has protected them and taken care of them, and God also reminded me, you know, Joy, part of your healing is to learn to surrender the things that you cannot control. If your children go through something difficult in their future, you need to understand that I will provide them with the grace to get through it, just like I gave you grace to also heal and get through your circumstance. You can't heal if you don't forgive. You can't heal if you don't trust God. You can't heal if you don't have hope. And hope comes from knowing that God is the one that holds our future. God is the one that writes the story of our life. And if we surrender our circumstances, our difficult pains, and the things that we've gone through, and we trust Him to write the ending, the story of our life, He can still write into the pain a beautiful ending, a beautiful story. And then we'll look back and we'll say, Lord, you are so amazing, you are so good. And so,
kahit anong dinadaanan ng tao, pag nagiging physically abusive, lalo na, kailangan protektahan ang mga tao na nagiging biktima. So, yan ang advice ko. At habang nangyayari din ito, di ba nga, dahil ang pananaw natin is God is in control of all circumstances, even while you're physically protecting yourselves at home, ang advice ko din para sa'yo is to pray for your father. Pray for the family. Pray that he will change. So, yan. Sana makatulong ito. And again, we empathize with you. Alam ko, napakahirap ng ganitong sitwasyon. Senior pa naman ang naging ang sitwasyon ng tatay, mamatanda na, no?
I think I would just add also that you need to find somebody or people whom you can trust, that you can open up to about what's happening in your family, because it's really hard to bear that alone. And ideally, these would be people who can do something about the situation, who can help you out. Either they know your father or they know you well, and they can give you ideas also on how to protect you and the other people in the family, and how to also help bring healing to your father. What I also tell people is, you know, when people are victimizing others, we have to also try to understand what hurts they're coming from, because people just don't become victimizers overnight. Like, they've also gone through things. And if somebody can come to counsel your father, to help him to also heal, so that there can be complete healing for the family, that would also be helpful.
Kasi hurt people, right? So definitely, may nangyari sa kanya. So pray for him and see if he can get help, even as you are physically protecting the people, because iba na yung pag-abuse. All right, let's go to your question.
Okay, so this one, being condemned and left out when you were going through your most difficult circumstance, and people were judging you, and then your so-called friends turned their backs on you, and that you felt so alone during your downfalls. You know, I can relate a little bit in the sense that when you go through difficult circumstances, you really feel so alone, like people can't relate. You feel like ikaw lang nagbubuhat ng problema mo. And that's why if you feel like the friends that you supposedly had abandoned you, there's also opportunity to find a new sense of community with others. And that's why I always ask people, when people open up to me, especially online, they write me messages all the time. One of the first questions I ask them, do you belong to a church? Do you belong to a family of other people who know Jesus, who know God, who can also walk alongside you? Because you'll find that people who genuinely love God will make genuinely great friends also. And the things that you feel like you don't have in the friends that you used to have, you can find in new friends. But in order to move on also, number one, if you can talk to those friends and just express to them also what you went through, what you felt, in a way that's like not angry, but you can say, I just want you to know, I know this is really hard, but it's going to be part of your healing. Na masabi mo din, I've processed this, and I've really chosen to forgive you. But it has to be sincere. Kailangan talaga ma-forgive mo sila, because it's possible that God can take this circumstance where you had conflict with your friends and you can even have a better relationship moving forward. Or it's possible that they were not the right friends to begin with and you have to move on. But you have to choose to forgive them. And so I would encourage you assess, am I still angry with my friends? Am I still bitter? And if I am, Lord, help me to forgive them, to choose to forgive them also. And then find a new community that you can be part of, where that sense of belonging that you're looking for, that sense of not journeying alone, you will find. But ultimately, as Edric shared earlier, you need to really come to the Lord and find that sense of belonging and that love, that unconditional love that you're looking for in Jesus.
And ito, kailangan din ng reality check, no? I think, sabi mo, you felt abandoned during your downfall at iniwan ka ng mga kaibigan mo. Baka naman, if you're honest with yourself, may mga ginawa ka na kailangan din baguhin. Diba? Kasi kung ang pananaw mo is silang may problema, they're the problems, they left me, I feel all alone. Joy said a lot of good things already to help you. But maybe part of the healing journey is to also have an honest look and say, ano ba yung mga ginawa kong mali?
That are within my control.
Na controlled ko. Kasi baka naman kaya ka din iniwan dahil sinasaway ka na. Halimbawa, alam mo yung ginawa mo mali. Tapos sinasabihan ka nila, don't do that. And you still did it. And that's why they abandoned you, because you chose to do everything against what they told you, which was supposed to be the right thing. So maybe part of the healing journey is for you to actually say, akuhin ko to. I will own up to this and say, I made a mistake. I will go to my friends and ask for forgiveness and say, patawarin mo ako kasi mali. Tama yung sinabi mo, mali yung ginawa ko. If that's the situation you're in. Because what could also be the reason why this happened is there's something that's within your control that you can do something about, that you know was not something you should have done. So sana makatulong din yan sa'yo. Alright, so last one. Namatay yung older sister ko on my birthday, pero nasa ICU muna siya for 7 days in a coma. Akala ko birthday gift, nagigising na siya on my birthday, but it's the opposite. I was 8, she was 13. So, very painful, no? Ang sinashare nitong stranger na ito, because instead of yung hinihiling niya, yung parang akala ko sa birthday ko, ang gift is magigising ang sister niya sa ICU, imbis na nagising, namatay ang kanyang sister. So very painful story, no? And my encouragement for you is like many of the things we experience that are painful. There's something about being able to ask and get answers to questions like, why would this happen? And sometimes the answer is not direct. Sometimes part of what is the reason for circumstances like this is as you know what we're learning, Romans 8:28, God causes all things to work for good for those who love Him, right? Sometimes in the situation where it's not what we are asking for or praying for and it doesn't seem good, God will use that circumstance to do something good in your life at some point. Ang tanong is, ano yun? What will that be? How exactly will He be able to respond? So what I would encourage you to do is, even as you struggle through the pain, is you trust that the person who will take you through it will have something that He will use to redeem at some point. How and when, di natin alam, but you've got to trust that. So the question that I want to give you is, kilala mo ba siya? Do you know the person who will take you through? And again, that is who God is. And maybe that's part of what you need to be able to do right now. So, go ahead.
And I just want to encourage you also, because my sister-in-law, she lost her brother when he was still young, and it was so devastating for her. But you know, today she's one of like the most beautiful people I know, in the sense that she really sees people's pain, because she went, ang dami niyang dinaanan, no, when she lost her brother. And I think that sometimes we don't understand, like, how can this be used for something good, as Edric was sharing. But do you know that you can also come alongside others who are hurting, and you'll be one of those people who can say, you know, I understand what you're going through, kasi ang dami kong din dinaanan. You know, a lot of people, they can't necessarily say that, but you can, so that when you come alongside people to encourage them, you would be one of the best people to do that, because they know that you've gone through something
They know
difficult
that you know.
also. Yes, you understand what it means to really lose something that is important to you, someone who's important. And so you will identify with people's loss. You will have a compassion that other people may not have, and God will use your compassion to be a blessing to others. There's this great definition of love, and it goes something like this: love is an unconditional commitment to an imperfect person for their highest good, which often requires sacrifice. You know, I know that we throw love around a lot, and we say, I love this and I love that, but the reality is, to truly love, it's not about what somebody can do for me, but it's about how can I be a blessing to that person? How can I give to that person? And, you know, I used to think that love is what makes me happy, or love is what is good for me. But love is a commitment, and there'll be times when, like, let's say in our marriage, I'm not so happy with something that Edric is doing, or he's frustrated
But
with
I
me.
thought I'm so perfect.
And I remember that there was one time I was praying to God. I was like, Lord, how come I get frustrated with Edric sometimes? And sometimes it's for the same things. And I was having this prayer walk with the Lord, and God whispered to me, will you love Edric even if he never changes? And that really struck me, because that's when I also realized I have a selfish love, and that's not real love. Because real love, it's God's love for us, where he gave of himself for us, for our good. And so that's when I realized, oh, I need to redefine what love is for me. It's not what's in it for me, but how can I really love Edric just as he is, and be a blessing to him, and help him be his best in whatever season he's in. So that's what love is to me.
That's good. I want to add to that. So I just have two words for love. Love is a choice, and love is a person, right? I think if you're able to understand those two, alongside what we just heard from Joy, you will have a full appreciation of it. Love is a choice, because it can be a feeling, pero anong mangyari pag wala ning feeling? So I'm married to Joy 23 years, and I'll be honest, it doesn't always feel loving, right? There are times when I'm hurt, I'm upset, and I'm sure she'll feel the same way, even after you heard all of our story. But love is a choice. And because I choose to love her, even if I don't feel it, I will stay committed to her. I will stay faithful to her. I will protect her with my life. Not because I feel it, but because I choose it. And I think that's what will really help many people as they understand love of any sort, right? Love for your parents, love for your family, love for
Difficult people. Yeah.
Right? So it is definitely a choice. And then I say love is a person, because if we really want to understand the breadth and depth of what love is, there is the author of love, and
The source of
he
love.
is our God, and he sent his son Jesus. So if you want to really understand love, you got to understand who God is and who his son Jesus is. And the more you get to know him, the breadth and depth of who he is, to the best of our ability, the more you'll be able to understand, ganun pala yung love, including what I just mentioned, that it is a choice. Because you will see that Jesus changes the game for love. He says, love those who are your enemies. He says, love those who are difficult. So again, if you ask me, what is love? I say love is a choice, and love is a person. I'm able to love this beautiful, amazing wife who has gone through so much stuff.
Even when I'm not amazing.
Even when she's not amazing, because it is a choice. And because I'm getting to know this same God who loves me, even if I do not deserve it, and I want to be able to just radiate that forward. So that's what love is.
Thank you so much, Zion. Again, this is Joy.
And this is Edric.
And here at Zion,
You are
loved.